Have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered, who am I now? Welcome to the Marvellous-U Podcast. And today I'll be discussing finding your identity beyond motherhood and caregiving. Have you ever looked in the mirror and wondered, who am I now? I have. Let me begin with a personal story. Growing up at a stage in my life, I got married, I became a wife, and I became a mother. Before I got married, I thought that I was living the best of my life and just enjoying being single. I had the freedom that I needed. I was working and I could travel at any time that I needed to. But after becoming a wife and a mother, I became so focused on caregiving and raising a family that at a time I realized that 10 years of my life went by and I didn't even realize it. Especially because I also became a caregiver, caring for a child with special need. I remember just after my 40th birthday, I was trying to reflect back on the last 10 years, and it seems like I was living in a kind of bubble. Like I wasn't conscious of how my life had been within the last 10 years, because caregiving, raising a family has taken the best part of those years for me. For many of us, motherhood and caregiving can redefine and sometimes blur our sense of self. And that is what happened with me. At a point, it's like I didn't even know who I was anymore. And the thing is, if you don't know who you are, you will be someone else. Because you are the only you there is. And being a caregiver and a mother can make you lose that sense of who you are. But you are more than just a mom. You are more than just a caregiver. You are more than just being a wife. You have a purpose and you have a destiny. In psychology, there is a lot of talk about identity. And for many of us, as we go through the different stages of our life, our identity evolves with different life roles. And there is a theory in psychology about the Erikson stages of psychosocial development. It talks about the stages of childhood, which is the first stage. The stages of childhood, spans over 4 different stages. So first, the infancy period, where we were born and were provided for by our caregiver with regular access to affection and food. Our parents provide everything that we need. And then we go into the early childhood, where our parents encourages us to be self-sufficient and while also maintaining a secure environment. So we start working, they encourage us to feed ourselves, and eventually we are able to bathe ourselves. And then we enter the play age period, where we start attending, school, and our parents guide us, to begin to have our own initiatives and interests. And then we go into the school age period. And at the school age period, our schools, our teachers, and our parents, they have expectations, for us. And they set these expectations, and we know what happens when we don't follow these expectations. We are able to get praise for some of our accomplishments as we go through the school age period. And then we enter the adolescence period. And throughout these stages, there is a shift in identity. And as we enter the adolescence period, what tends to happen for a lot of us is we begin to question our identity. And this is the stage that I call the identity crisis. For many people, it's a season, it's a stage of confusion. And as a young teenager myself, I remember going through this period of identity crisis, of trying to understand who am I, finding myself as I went through this period of adolescence. So as an adolescent, you begin to weigh your previous experience with societal expectation and your own aspiration in establishing values and finding yourself. And for many young people, it's a period of struggle. That is why I describe it as an identity crisis. I remember going through this period. At a point in my early days, I was like, I wanted to be a boy. I wanted to be with the boys. I wanted to do things that gave me that feeling of superiority. But then I also realized that my body was changing and I'm a girl. And no matter how I tried to hang out with the boys, they were always going to see me as a girl. And going through those periods and coming into the adulthood period, when you become a young adult, and during this period, you are forming close friendships or long-term partnership with people. Your friends becomes, the most important people in your life. And then you go through to college, to university, and then you start working, and you get married. You have children if you decide to. For some, they might not get married. Some may not even see this stage of their life. And then you go into stage 7, where you begin to engage with the next generation, because now you have children that are grown up. So you are parenting, you are coaching, you're teaching. And in the last stage of our identity shift is stage 8, where we have become matured. We are getting into the old age period. And here we are beginning to contemplate and acknowledge all of our personal life accomplishments. We are beginning to think about all of the things we have gone through from, the childhood stage to the adolescent stage and now to this adulthood. But throughout these stages, as we go through all of these stages, there is a shift in identity. And like I said before, your sense of identity evolves with life roles as you go through these stages. You don't remain the same person you were years ago. And so, while you are wondering what is happening to you, the truth is that you haven't really lost yourself. You are simply becoming. As you go through all of these stages of your life, you are simply becoming. So normalize it, because these are the stages in life that we have to go through. But in going through all of these stages, it is important that you know who you are. Getting to know who you are is the most essential information you can find out about yourself. It is important that you don't just go through these stages like one of my mentors would say, like a biomass, like someone without purpose and without destiny. It is important that you discover yourself and really know who you are. But as mothers, as we go through this period of adulthood and we become mothers and we are taking care of our children and becoming caregivers also, what are some of the common struggles that we face? One of the common struggles is going through these shifting roles in our lives and these stages of our life is the feeling of invisibility, the feeling of being unacknowledged. And so for many moms, they've become invisible because everything is about the children. Everything is about the spouse. Or if you are a caregiver to young ones or even to your elder parents, everything becomes about the things that you do for others. And sometimes you are not even acknowledged for the sacrifices that you make. You are not even acknowledged for the things that you are able to do, running your house, taking care of your children. And this becomes a struggle as you go through the stages of life. And then comes the guilt of wanting more outside of parenting. Because suddenly you realize that, is this all there is to my life? Just being a wife and a mother. But then you suddenly feel like you can't really do anything outside of parenting. And so for many of us, we limit ourselves. We feel guilty about trying to do more for ourselves because we still have the children to take care of. We still have our family to take care of. And another struggle that comes with it is comparing ourselves to who we used to be before children or care responsibilities come in. So we struggle with this feeling. We think about the things we used to do probably before we got married. We think about the things we were doing while we were working, while we were single. And this brings, a feeling of dissatisfaction within ourselves. But how do we reconnect with our identity? in going through my identity shift, I suddenly found like I was walking on autopilot, just being a wife and a mother and doing the things that I need to do. And I wasn't conscious of my daily living. But then I came across a teaching from one of my mentors which changed the trajectory of my life. And one of the books that I read that I would recommend is his bestseller, which you can find on Amazon. The book is titled, Who Am I and Why Am I Here? After reading through this book, I suddenly came into a place where I realized that no, I have to reconnect with my identity. I am made for more than this. I cannot just live my life in a daze, in an autopilot, without any sense of purpose and without any sense of destiny. So how did I reconnect with my identity? And what are the ways you can reconnect with your identity? Here are 5 ways you can do that. First, reflect. For me, after hearing that teaching, it became a moment of reflection. I started thinking back about the early stages of my life when I was a young adult, when I was going through my adolescence period. Reflect about who you are. Journal who you were, who you are, and who you are becoming. I started thinking about all of this. Who was I? Who am I now? And who am I becoming? Doing this reflection will help you to discover a lot about yourself, about your passions, about the things, your hobbies, the things you were good at as a young person, the things that brought you joy. And this will reignite your passions, because it did for me. And when my passion was reignited, I suddenly remembered the dream I had to mentor young people, to sit with them in their corner and help to develop values and principles in their life. And that led me to start a club for girls that is called the Marvellous Girls Club. And working with young people became a joy, became a hobby, something that it was a dream fulfilled for me. And in reigniting my passion, I also discovered that one of the hobbies or one of the dreams I held dearly in my heart was to be able to write a book. And I've not only written a book for young girls, I've also written a book for mothers who are carers of children with special needs. My first book, Hey Girl, Amazing Secrets to Making the Most of Your Teenage Years. And then my second book is Raising a Glass Baby, a self-care guide for parents of children with special needs, by Grace and Igor. And these books are available on Amazon. So my passion for writing was reignited. My passion for mentorship was reignited just by reflecting on who I was, who am I, and who I am becoming. And then the next way to reconnect with your identity is to rebuild your community. Connect with women who uplift you. I remember in those early days when my children were still young. And like I said, it's like I have lived so many years in autopilot, not being conscious of my day-to-day. I was just going through the motions every day. But when I was able to drop my children, both of them, my second child starting reception class for the first time, when I found that I was able to drop two of my children in school for the first time, the first thing I wanted to do was to connect with women. There has been an advert for a business women's club that I've always wanted to attend. But because of childcare and caregiving, I was never able to do that. But at the first opportunity I had, I went for that breakfast meeting. I can remember the freedom and the joy I felt just sitting among these women. I was so free, I was so excited, oh my God, this is my life back. At last, I can finally go out by myself without carrying children. Why? Because they were in school. So I start with these women because I was running a business, at home, which is my personal business. And I sat with these women who were there also to support each other. I was inspired. I was motivated. And it just felt so good to connect with these women because, yes, I felt uplifted. among these women, sitting among these women helped me to reconnect with my identity. It helped me to discover who I am. It helped me to really discover the things that brings me joy. Because I was inspired by their stories, about the things that they were doing. And so rebuild your community. Connect with women. Attend meetings. Network with other women so that you can rebuild and reconnect with your identity. The other thing you can do is to reframe your narrative. Don't just say, oh, I'm just a mom. Oh, I'm just a wife. Oh, I'm just a carer. You are more than your roles. They are part of your whole. They are not who you are. They don't just define who you are. They are just parts of your whole being. So reframe your narrative. Remember I said that you have a purpose. You have a destiny. And while you are evolving as you go through these stages of your life, you are more than these roles. So don't limit yourself with the narrative of, oh, I'm just a wife, or I'm just a mom, or I'm just a carer. No, reframe that narrative. Another way you can reconnect with your identity is to celebrate your small rediscoveries. Every act of self-recognition counts. I was really pleased with myself that I could start a club for girls in my community. I didn't think I could do it, but being able to run that club and just go out there in the community was something that I celebrated. And then I struggled with the thought of ever being able to write a book, and I was able to do it. And so I celebrate that also, that I'm an author. When I started a business, I didn't have any idea of how to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know anything about that. But having a child with special needs, that being a stay-at-home mom, was what led me to also discover that I could be an entrepreneur. And so I put myself out for awards, and I celebrate that. I remember when I first applied for the F Entrepreneur Recognition Award. It was something to celebrate for me, because every act of self-recognition counts. Is just a way to tell myself that, yes, I did this, and I'm proud of myself for doing it. When I won the Small Business Award as a second runner-up, I put myself out there, because these were things I discovered about myself. And every small rediscovery about yourself, celebrate it. Remember, in one of my last podcasts, I told you about the marvelous moment. Celebrate your small wins, no matter how small, because every act of self-recognition counts. If you don't celebrate yourself, who will? In finding your identity beyond motherhood and caregiving, recognize that as you go through all of these stages of your life, your roles evolve. From being, first of all, you were a child, to being an adolescent, a young adult, and becoming a mature adult. But in going through these stages, you have to discover yourself. You have to find yourself, because you are here for a purpose. And going through these stages of my life, from when I became, from being an adolescent to a young adult to a wife and a mother, I found myself. And thanks to my mentor who brought that awakening to me by asking me the question, who am I? Why are you here? That question shook the entire core of my existence. And I had to tell myself that no, I am born for more than this. My life on earth has a purpose. I'm not going to be limited by my circumstances. I'm not going to be limited by the fact that I'm a caregiver to a child with special need. There is so much more to you than you are aware of. Only if you take the time to reflect, if you take the time to think, if you take the time to reignite with your passions. Because for me, rediscovering my purpose, rediscovering and finding myself led me into writing, into mentorship, into going back into education, into entrepreneurship, and all of this has helped to rebuild my identity. Because the truth is, when I found purpose again, I found myself again. And you can do that too. You can rediscover your purpose. I want to encourage you today to write a letter to your future self. Who are you now? Who are you becoming? Who are you now? Who are you becoming? I want to encourage you to write a letter to your future self. Your roles may shape you, but they don't define your worth. Yes, it's okay to be a mom. It's okay to be a wife, to be a caregiver. Wherever you are, as you go through your life stages, you will evolve through those roles. But those roles, they don't define your worth. You are made for so much more. You are marvelously you. You've been listening to the Marvellous-U Podcast. If this episode resonates with you, please subscribe, rate, and share. It's the best way to spread the word and support others on their journey. And always remember, you are marvelous just as you are. See you in the next episode.